Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Hello,
Hi, Luis. Good to see you or hear from you.
good to see you too, dear.
Angie, is this Angie Palacios or a different Angie?
First time seeing you.
I'm sorry, what's that?
It's my first time being on the Zoom meeting.
Oh, okay, great, because I have an Angie Palacios that just passed her test, and I thought maybe she signed up to come and tell you guys because she might come to one of my sessions to tell everybody about her experience passing. Um, but I'm happy to have all of you here. So I see some
Thank you.
familiar names and some new people, and I'm super excited. So tonight, like, there should be more people coming, but we'll go ahead and get started because I always like to start right on time. And I'll be asking questions. If you could answer in the chat box, that'd be great. And if you could mute your mic so we don't hear background noise, that'd be great. And at the end, I'll definitely take questions. So I'm excited because we have somebody here tonight that is a professor that's coming to learn more about how to help her students. So that's exciting. I haven't had that happen before. So tonight we'll do a little bit of each domain, but before we get started, I always like to tell you a little bit about the test because maybe you have never taken the test and you need to know. So we'll do that, then we'll practice all the domains, and then at the end you'll get a free lesson plan. So real quick in the chat box, will you tell me if you're excited about teaching and why? I'd like to do a little icebreaker. I know I was super excited to teach because I wanted to help students, of course, make a difference, but also because I wanted a job that would work for my family. So I'd love to hear why you want to become a teacher or why you're already teaching if you're already in the classroom. So let's hear. So while those trickle in, I'll tell you a little bit about the test. So test reading, writing, listening, and speaking, right? Um, oh, good. So we hear from Yaritza, excited about teaching, love working with kids and making a difference. That's a great reason. Soy maestra de kinder. All right, you're already teaching. Maria's already teaching and you love it. Yes, kindergarten is so fun. They're so sweet. Um, that's awesome. So it's exciting to want to be in the classroom or to be in the classroom, right? But in order to do that, or in order to stay, pass these tests. That part's not so exciting, right? I remember being very nervous about taking my exams, very stressed out, especially if you're already teaching. And that's how I did it. I was already teaching and had to study for my tests. So it was overwhelming, right? Is anybody feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, anything like that, nervous? I know I was reading the comments from some of the people that registered, and some of them aren't here yet, but some people, they've taken it a couple times, haven't passed, really disappointed. Uh, so we've got another comment. Oh, excited to help bilingual kids. Yes. So who's nervous or frustrated by these tests? That's the next question I have. Yes, it is. Good. We have more people coming in. Yeah, the BTLPT has a failure rate of about 50%. It's right around 50%. I'll show you the data and then we'll get started on the content real soon. Because I always like to show you some information about the test, especially if you've taken it before and haven't been successful yet, to know you're not alone, right? So if we look at BTLPT, this is the passing rate. And the passing rate was 53% last year. So 47% of the people didn't pass. So it is frustrating. So you might be wondering what you can do to pass, right? Well, I have a real specific course to get you there, right? And even tutoring. And I've passed 15 of these tests, you guys. 15 Texas exams, right? And I've tutored tons of people. to help them pass with great success. So that's why I would be able to help you. But before we talk any more about that stuff, let's get in, because I know you're here to learn. So let's look at what the test covers. We have listening comprehension at 21%, reading comprehension 26%, oral expression 29%, written expression 24%. So they're all in the 20s, but you can see oral expression and written expression. Oral expression is the biggest, then reading, then written, and then listening. And honestly, people tend to do better on listening and reading, and they struggle with speaking and writing. So that's a little unfortunate because that adds up to more than half of the test, right? But it's all stuff that we can overcome with practice. So that's the breakdown. If you have not yet done it, I definitely recommend you look at all of the resources in this free manual. It's not really enough for most people to pass, but it'll tell you more about the test, and you can do some free practice. It has a little bit of listening practice, a little bit of reading. You can see some sample writing tasks that you can practice writing, and sample speaking tasks. So for most people, this is just a starting point. I wouldn't call it a preparation manual like they call it, because it doesn't really fully prepare you, but it's a good starting point. So let's see. So we've talked about what's on the test. Now let's get started. So I'm going to be using some stuff from my course and some stuff that's from a file. So if you're in my course in tutoring already, you might have already seen some of this stuff, but it'll be good practice again. So we're going to go down, there's lots of practice, but we're going to go to task 4 for listening. And we'll talk about strategies. So for the listening, you hear it twice, right? So what you should be doing, in my opinion at least, and I did very well on the BTLPT, so I think this works and helped other people pass. Just heard from 3 people last week that passed. So that was super exciting. So the first time, you just want to take general notes of what you hear, right? Anything that you've noticed that you can write down quickly. And they do give you erasable sheets on your at your test center, right? Or maybe pencil and paper, but most places now it's erasable sheets, kind of like a dry erase board. Then after you hear it one time, you get to preview questions, only 10 seconds per question to preview them. So on your notes, jot down what you're listening for, keywords. And then the second time when you hear it again, you write down the answers to those questions, right? And that way, whenever you answer the questions, you only get 20 seconds to answer each question. You can quickly look at your notes and answer those questions. I know that for the listening, I think I missed 2, only 2, right? And on the 2 that I missed, they were kind of longer. I think it's the ones that I missed at least. And I kind of had to guess at the last minute. I felt rushed. But that was pretty good to only miss 2. So I was very happy with that. So timing is, a challenge. You have to really stay focused and think fast. So let's listen to the first file. Okay. So this is from a free website that has a lot of great listening practice from native speakers from all different countries. So today we'll listen to somebody from Peru, right? So I like to pick people from South America, the Caribbean, and Spain because we're almost all used to people from Mexico and Central America. So I picked some different ones. This has a video component, but we're going to ignore the video because on the test you don't get the video.
Bueno, quiero opinar acerca de algo que está pasando ahora en Perú y es un poco grave, es sobre la toma de los subversivos terroristas de la embajada, de la casa del embajador de Japón en Lima, ¿no? Es algo que nos está haciendo mucho daño a nivel internacional, porque la imagen que se da de este problema es pésima, sobre todo para el turismo aquí. Aunque la situación está localizada y centralizada solo ahí, fuera se cree que la situación es un caos en todo Lima, y eso es malo para nosotros.
Okay, so we heard the question. Now we can preview the questions. And on the test, you only preview the question part. So just read the question part, don't read the answer part, right? So we'll preview those for 10 seconds each. So right now we're previewing the questions and writing down the keywords, right? Okay, so hopefully you wrote down those keywords like I was saying. So you would want to write down donde terrorismo, something like that. Where's the terrorism occurring, right? And then cómo ha afectado, something like that. Keywords. El problema, and then malo para nosotros, something like that. You want to write down these keywords. Now we'll listen to it a second time, then we'll answer the questions one at a time.
Bueno, quiero opinar acerca de algo que está pasando ahora en Perú y es un poco grave, es sobre la toma de los subversivos terroristas de la embajada, de la casa del embajador de Japón en Lima, ¿no? Es algo que nos está haciendo mucho daño a nivel internacional, porque la imagen que se da de este problema es pésima, sobre todo para el turismo aquí. Aunque la situación está localizada y centralizada solo ahí, fuera se cree que la situación es un caos en todo Lima y eso es malo para nosotros.
All right, so we heard it. Now we get to do the questions. All right, so let me make this where you can see the whole thing. And then if you could put your answer in the chat box. Okay, we're seeing B and D, right? So you had to listen really carefully, but it did mention en la embajada for sure, but also en la casa del embajador de Japón. Okay, number 2. This one, good. It's affected tourism. She said that it's affected tourism because of the perception, right? Yeah, she said it's localized, right? Localizado, just in a specific area. And then this last one. This one's a little bit tricky. Let's see if we get more answers. Yes, this one is C. She talks about the negative image it creates, right? That people think it's all over the place, but it's very localized, right? So If you had a hard time with that passage, you can practice this one again by going to this website. And there's even a transcript where you can look at the transcript. Now, of course, on the test, you don't get a transcript. But when we're practicing, we need to use scaffolding just like we do for our students, right? And sometimes we do need to look at these transcripts, listen a third time, use strategies to get better to where eventually we don't need to do these things, right? So it's fine if you have to look at the transcript. I'll show you. So if you click on the file we were on, you can read the transcript in Spanish. You can even read it in English, or you can hide it. So it's a great resource. It doesn't have the quizzes, so I make up the quizzes to go with it for my tutoring. I pick the ones that I think are best for the BTLPT and the quizzes. So we finished that exercise. Now, let's do a reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is also important. Now, I hear from people about their test experience, right? And I took it too, so I know that there's a wide variety of types of reading on the test, right? Oh, and I forgot to show you, before we go on, I have a testimonial to show you at the end of each one, because this is exciting. These are ones just from last week too. So super recent. This one's from Anna. And you can see she did really well, 253. She did great on listening and reading, and pretty well on speaking too. And then writing, she struggled a little bit, but she was still able to pass. And she didn't do my course in tutoring for all that long. She was kind of on a fast track, and she still passed. So, but she worked hard. She did her work. So I think if she'd have stayed a little bit longer, like I recommend 2 months, if she would have stayed even longer, I think her score would have been even higher on the writing. But she passed, and that's the main thing. So that's exciting. So last week was a great week for me, hearing from 3 people that passed. That was amazing. So for the reading, some people tell me about, the types of reading they get on their test. And of course I took it too. Sometimes it's nonfiction, just stuff like informative. Sometimes it might be a little short story. Sometimes it's a poem. And the poems tend to be hard for most people, right? We're not always used to reading poetry, and especially in Spanish, right? So this is a classic poem, Volverán las oscuras golondrinas, by Gustavo Adolfo Becker. If you haven't heard of him, he's from Spain, an author, famous author from Spain. So we can right-click this, like if you have my course, if you want to have it open so you can scroll back and forth, just right-click and open it in a new tab. And of course, on the test, you're probably not going to be reading out loud because you're in a room with other people. I guess you could read out loud because everybody's got their headphones on, right? But in tutoring, I like us to read out loud, talk about it, look up words we don't know so we learn, right? And then I encourage you to make a list of words that you're learning in Spanish. And I have a list that I keep on my drive so that way I can access it on my phone or on my computer, right? And then recently, I've been taking it one step further. So instead of just having a list, I'll make up sentences that go with those words. Because if you think about it, when we're teaching kids vocabulary words, that's what we have them do, come up with original sentences. So I've been doing that, and it helps me retain my words more. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll try to come up with a silly sentence about it. That way I remember it even better if it's funny, right? So we have Volverán las oscuras golondrinas. So let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. This is short. Would anybody like to read this poem?
I would like to read it.
Great, thank you, Yaritza. Go ahead.
Volverán las oscuras golondrinas de tu balcón, sus nidos al colgar, y otra vez con el ala a sus cristales, jugando llamarán, pero aquellas que el vuelo refrenaban tu hermosura y mi dicha al contemplar. Aquellas que aprendieron nuestros nombres, esas no volverán. Volverán las tupidas madreselvas de tu jardín las tapias a escalar. Y otra vez a la tarde, aún más hermosas, sus flores se abrirán. Pero aquellas cua- cuajadas de rocío cuyas gotas mirábamos temblar y caer como lágrimas del día, esas no volverán. Volverán del amor en tus oídos las palabras ardientes a soñar. Tu corazón de su profundo sueño tal vez despertará, pero mudo y absorto y de rodillas, como se adora a Dios ante un altar. Como yo te he querido desengañarte, así no te quieran.
Thank you. And with poetry, I always recommend that we read it more than once because it's kind of heavy, right? So Angie also offered to read. Angie, would you like to read it a second time?
Sure.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Volverán las oscuras golondrinas de tu balcón sonidos a colgar, y otra vez con el ala a sus cristales jugando llamarán. Pero aquellas que el vuelo refrenaban su hermosura y mi dicha al contemplar, aquellas que aprendieron nuestros nombres, esas no volverán. Volverán las tupidas madreselvas de su jardín las tapias a escalar, y otra vez a la tarde, aún más hermosas, sus flores se abrirán. Pero aquellas hojadas de rocío cuyas gotas mirábamos temblar y caer como lágrimas del día, esas no volverán. Volverán del amor en tus oídos las palabras ardientes a sonar, tu corazón de su profundo sueño tal vez despertará, pero mudo y absurdo y de rodillas como se adora a Dios ante un altar, como yo te he querido, desengáñate, así no te quedarán.
Thank you. So, um, you know, if this poem is challenging for you, you can read it again and again, right? And there's also a translation where it might help you to read it in English, but we won't do that since on the test, of course, you don't get that. So now let's look at the questions. You always want to go back to the text and look for the answer when you can. Sometimes you can't. Like number one, ¿cuál es el tono del poema? Well, we're not going to find the tone in a specific part, right? But let's look at all of our options. Amoroso, loving, doesn't seem right. Amargo, optimista, pensativo. So we go back to the text, right? Pero aquellos que el vuelo refrenaban tu hermosura y mi dicha al contemplar, aquellos que aprendieron nuestros nombres, esas no volverán. Right here. Down here also. Pero mudo y absorto y de rodillas, como se adora a Dios ante un altar. Como yo te he querido, desengáñate, así no te querrán. So after we read those parts again, what do you think about the tone?
Like están,
Yeah, bitter, amargo. Yeah, bitter. He's bitter. They're not going to love you. We can pick up on that when he keeps saying no volverán. Esas no volverán. Así no te querrán. No volverán. It's bitter, right? It's about a love that didn't work out. ¿Cuál es un tema del poema?
pues sí, la fugacidad del amor.
Yeah, that's right. Love is fleeting, right? And then number three, ¿cuál palabra es sinónimo de tapias? So here we need to go back to the text and look at the part that says tapias. Volverán las tupidas madreselvas de tu jardín, las tapias a escalar, y otra vez a la tarde, aún más hermosas, sus flores se abrirán. So if we look at the words around it, we can look for context clues, right? We can also see what type of word it is. Is it a noun, an adjective? These are all strategies we can use to help us figure it out. Volverán las tupidas madreselvas de tu jardín, las tapias a escalar. So something that is, they're scaling, right? So what would they be scaling? Well, the only one that makes sense would be walls, right? So even though we maybe didn't know what that word meant, we can figure it out from context clues. Sometimes you can't, right? Sometimes you need to do structural analysis. Look at the word parts and see if you can figure it out from a root word or maybe it's a cognate, a word that looks alike. So these are all strategies we talk about in my course in tutoring to help you get more questions right. ¿Qué hace el poeta para dar énfasis al tema principal? Repite la palabra volverán, usa muchas metáforas, usa muchos símiles, usa la personificación. So I'll go back to the So here he's repeating something again to give emphasis. Volverán, right? If we look at it and it gives it emphasis. No volverán, no volverán, right? So he's doing that to give emphasis to what's not going to come back. So if this was challenging for you, like I said, you can read it in English. You can also look up the words you don't know. But it's a great poem. So I'll put this in the chat. That way, in case you want to read it later again, you can. All right. So we have already done listening and reading, which is great, right? So let me show you another person who passed last week. This person, this is Angie, and I thought this might be the Angie that was here tonight. Let me make this bigger. So Angie, she passed on her 5th try. So she was super nervous because she contacted me and she's like, I really don't want to have to get a waiver. I'm nervous. I'm on my last attempt. Can you help me? And I said, yes. And she studied with me for probably 3 months. I can't remember exactly how long, but she studied for a while because she was on her last attempt. She wanted to be very sure she was going to pass. She showed up every time, always participated, turned in all of her assignments. She worked super hard and she passed on her last try. And she said that my resource was the most helpful. She had already done lots of other things, books, other courses. And some of them are very good. I'm not saying that there's not good stuff out there. There is, but she felt like this was the most comprehensive because she got the course where she could practice, right? She got feedback from me on her writing and speaking, how to improve. And then she got weekly tutoring. And the weekly tutoring is great because you get help from me. You can ask me questions, but also we all share together what we're doing to work on the BTLPT. So I learn from my clients all the time, different resources that I didn't know about. So for example, this one's a good one and this is free. So I'm always looking for for free stuff to share with you guys. So Common Lit, I already knew about it, but somebody showed me a part about it that I hadn't seen before, where there's even more reading. So like I knew about these, but if you click on these different links, you can see even more stuff, guided lessons, you can nonfiction, but this literature here is stuff that I read when I was getting my master's degree in Spanish. So it's very quality literature and it's free. You can see very famous authors. You've probably heard of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. He's probably the most famous Latin American author there is. He wrote Cien Años de Soledad. He wrote lots of other stuff. A very famous poem called Si Supiera. Tan Amigos. This one's in my course. If you're in my course in tutoring, very challenging text. It's very hard. But what's great about this is it's got vocabulary words in there and it's got little quizzes. So it's a great resource and it's free. And then my course has a lot of practice too. So now we need to do oral expression, right? So oral expression, this makes people nervous, especially doing it on Zoom with people that you don't know, right? Even if you do know them, it's nerve-wracking, right? But I encourage you guys to be willing to practice tonight. So somebody hopefully will volunteer to do this because it really does mimic the test. And this is what we do in my Tuesday night group. We meet Tuesday nights for tutoring. and people take turns practicing, and then I give them feedback on how to improve. And it's great because at the test center, you've got to talk and there's other people in the room with you, and it's nerve-wracking, right? So it's great practice to get you ready for the test. So the oral expression is 29% of the test, is the biggest part. And it's the part people really don't do as well on because a lot of people don't practice or they don't get feedback, right? So that's why I'm really big on always reminding you, turn in your assignments. Let me give you feedback on how to improve, because some people tell me, well, I don't need to practice. Spanish is my first language. I speak Spanish well. Well, I'm sure that's true, but you have to do it a certain way for the test. You have to fully address the task. You have to stay on topic. You have to vary your language structure. You have to use proper Spanish. You can't do any code switching. So these are all things that we talk about in my tutoring on Tuesday nights, and we practice, right? So there's a simulated conversation. That one, I think people do pretty well on that one. You don't get any prep time, so that's nerve-wracking, but you only have to talk for 20 seconds each time it's your turn to talk. So it's not that bad. But the question and answers, there you have to talk for a minute each time. So that's nerve-wracking. The oral presentation, you have to talk for 2 whole minutes. And the support and opinion, you have to talk for 2 whole minutes. So you'll see that it is hard to talk for 2 whole minutes. So for this, let's do a question and answer, because it's not the hardest one. I don't want to do the hardest and I don't want to do the easiest. So we'll do the question and answer. So you get to hear this file, and then you get 60 seconds to take notes. So please get pencil and paper or open up a Word document that you can take notes on, just like you would at the test, right? And then we'll see if somebody wants to practice, and we'll speak for 1 minute. And so I'm going to play this, and you can take notes for 1 minute.
¿Cuáles son algunos ejemplos de actividades que un maestro puede preparar para asegurar que la lección esté enfocada en los estudiantes y que ellos participen?
So now you get to hear it again, right? And then, so would anybody like to do this? And this is a no judgment zone, right? I'll keep all of the comments very encouraging. And I have to say that I've been doing this for years, right? And I've never had anybody be rude to anybody on tutoring. Teachers are some of the nicest people in the world. So they're not gonna, nobody's gonna be laughing or criticizing. Even if you mess up, even if you don't talk long enough, we'll keep it all positive. Would anybody like to give this a shot? No? Well, I'll give you guys an example so you can hear an example, okay?
¿Cuáles son algunos ejemplos de actividades que un maestro puede preparar para asegurar que la lección esté enfocada en los estudiantes y que ellos participen?
Buenas tardes. Hoy voy a hablar sobre varias estrategias que maestros pueden usar para asegurar que los niños presten atención y que estén enfocados en la lección. Para empezar, sabemos que hay 3 estilos de aprendizaje. Algunos estudiantes aprenden visualmente, así que necesitamos vídeos y gráficas para ellos. Otros estudiantes aprenden por escuchar. Necesitan recursos auditivos, como canciones, rimas e incluso explicaciones orales para esos estudiantes. También hay los niños que tienen el estilo de aprendizaje sinestésico. Así que ellos necesitan mover el cuerpo, mover las manos. Así que necesitamos objetos físicos tangibles que pueden usar y manipular para aprender. Si hacemos eso, todos van a prestar más atención y van a aprender mejor. Así que la lección va a estar enfocada en los estudiantes y that was it. So notice how I talked about the learning styles. So those might be words you're not used to, like kinesthetic, right, in Spanish. So I read an article about learning styles in Spanish when I was studying for my test, right, and got used to these words, these cognitive words. And that stuff I work on in tutoring is building your cognitive academic language proficiency, right? So all of us have BICS in Spanish. I'm sure we have that. That's your basic interpersonal communicative skills. But not everybody has CALP. And you have to have that to be able to pass the BTLPT. You have to have a high level of Spanish, right? So we've talked about 3 of the 4 domains, which is great. Now we have writing. And the writing, let me show you. If we go to the manual, written expression, you have to write a response to a letter, memo, or email. That's not too bad as long as you use the right register, the right level of formality, which is all stuff I talk about in tutoring, right? Use proper Spanish and your accent marks, which I also teach you in tutoring because it's very hard to pass the BTLPT if you don't use accent marks properly. Lesson plan, that's the one that most people struggle with the most, and then an opinion position essay. So tonight I thought we would do a lesson plan. We'll talk about a lesson plan for this reason. Like I said, it makes people the most nervous. And, you know, your lesson plan could be on social studies, science, math, or language arts. It's not going to be on fine arts, I don't think, because there's no TEKS in fine arts. But people tell me that their lesson plan, they usually tell me the topic, not the details, right? We're not supposed to do that because you sign that affidavit saying you won't do that, right? So if anybody tries to tell me, I stop them because it's unethical. But a lot of times they'll tell me they got it on language arts or they got it on math or something. And everybody lately has been getting it on language arts, right? So, and when I took it, I got it on language arts too. So I wrote one on language arts that we'll go over tonight. And I will send this to you at the end of tutoring tonight. That way you can review it. But I do ask that you don't share this with other people because I really say this for people that take the time to come to my tutoring, right? So we have materia, they give you this. Artes de lenguaje y lectura. Tema, los rasgos de no ficción, right? Traits of nonfiction. Objetivo. Después de la lección, los estudiantes identificarán los rasgos de textos informativos. So after the lesson, students will identify the traits of informative text, nonfiction, right? So this is what's given. Then you have to fill out the grado escolar. So you have to know what grade level this would be appropriate for. This particular objective would be appropriate for many, many grade levels, almost all of them. Then you have to fill out the vocabulary. All of your vocabulary needs to relate directly to the objective. The materials and the activities, right? So that's the part you fill out. This part right here, I added in. What I did was I wanted to show you that it's based on the TEKS, right? Your objectives are always going to be based on one of the TEKS. So it's good to read the TEKS in Spanish. So you can see in first grade, this is one of the TEKS. Reconozca las características y estructuras del texto informativo, incluyendo la idea central y la evidencia que la apoya con la ayuda de un adulto, because we're in first grade. Rasgos y gráficas simples para localizar u obtener información y patrones organizacionales, tales como el orden cronológico y la descripción, con la ayuda de un adulto, right? So you could pick other grade levels, but you just want to keep in mind that whatever activities you pick are going to match the grade level, right? So, for example, if you pick a grade like I did first grade, and they're doing stuff with abstract thinking and reasoning, that's not appropriate because we know first graders can't think abstractly yet, right? So you want to keep in mind your stages of cognitive development that you learned about for your core subjects and your STR, right? So we have vocabulario, texto informativo, idea central, evidencia, orden cronológico, secuencia, datos, eventos, principio, medio, final. Some of these words are going to be a little bit hard for first graders, right? So we have to really explain it, give them examples, right? But they can learn the even complicated words with examples. Materiales, video, organizador gráfico, libros de no ficción, biografías. Needs to be texts that are related to nonfiction, right? And then we have procedimientos. Notice I use my accent marks and I use the future tense. Usually when you write lesson plans, it's always the teacher will, right? So we want to be using the future tense with accent marks. How many vocabulary words? Nobody tells us, but I think at least 8 is good. That's what I think. And I did well on my lesson plan and I had, I think I aimed for 8. I don't remember exactly how many I had, but I aimed for 8. So we have the procedimiento. Al principio de la lección, la maestra introducirá las palabras del vocabulario. The future tense in Spanish always has an accent mark, except for the nosotros form. So anytime you're writing in the future tense, you always want an accent. Luego verán un video que explica las palabras. Después, los estudiantes usarán las palabras en oraciones originales. So we always want to say how we're going to teach the vocabulary words. That's super important. If you don't do that, you'll lose points. La maestra explicará que los cuentos son de ficción, pero hoy vamos a aprender de la no ficción. Vamos a leer algunos textos informativos. La maestra va a explicar cómo adivinar la idea central y va a mostrarles cómo poner los datos de un texto en orden cronológico. Luego juntos van a leer una biografía corta y sencilla sobre Rosa Parks. It needs to be a simple text since it's first grade, right? Van a buscar los datos y los eventos. En un organizador gráfico van a colocar los eventos de la biografía en orden cronológico. Van a discutir los rasgos de la no ficción que encontraron en el texto. So after the lesson, they'll identify the text. That's what I had them doing, right? They're going to be looking for those traits. Evaluación. La evaluación formal es el organizador gráfico. La evaluación informal es la discusión sobre los textos de no ficción. So they only require you to have one evaluation, but I think it's always good to have both formal and informal because we know that's what's expected, right? Any questions about the lesson plan? And most people on the writing are getting about 67% of the possible points. And I know the main reason they're losing points is because they're not putting accent marks. That's why I make an effort to teach that. There's simple rules to learn for that. The other reason they miss points is because they don't focus on the objective of the task, right? They get off topic or don't fully address the objective. So man, we covered a lot. How many words should we write? Let me look at the manual and it'll tell us exactly how many words for the lesson plan. Let's see, it's not a lot, 150 words. So it's not a lot. And also you should know you get 70 minutes to write all 3 tasks. So the time is, it's kind of hard to write all 3 in 70 minutes. So definitely practice. And there's this free practice here. If you enroll in my course, you'll get practice and you even turn it in for feedback. And I'll tell you how to improve, right? So I'm really good at making sure you stay on topic and helping you with accent marks, right? So even if your Spanish writing is good, you might need help making sure you fully address the objective. So did you guys learn something tonight? Did you learn a lot about the BTLPT?
Yes, I did.
You did? Oh, good. Let's see, we've got some people chatting too. Yes, good, good. I love it. I love helping people pass these tests because I remember how overwhelmed I was and stressed out. And some of the material available when I was studying wasn't real similar to the test. And it was, yeah, some of it just wasn't that helpful or had mistakes, right? So like I remember buying something for one of the tests that I took and the spelling was wrong and the accent marks were wrong. And I was like, well, that's not going to help me, right? So, so I had to come up with my own material for a lot of these tests. And then I ended up deciding to help other people pass too. So when I first started making material, it was never with the purpose of starting a business. It just kind of happened. Yeah, the time for tutoring, it's been at 8 p.m. Central, but next week I'm going to text everybody and let them know it's at 7:30 Central. I think that will work better for most people too. So it'll be at 7:30 Central on Tuesday nights. And we meet for a whole hour and I take questions. And like I said, we all learn from each other. So I think that's great. And some of you guys came in late and just want to remind you that, you know, this test is challenging. It's got a failure rate of around 47%, about 53% of the people pass. Even people where Spanish is their first language, they really struggle with this a lot of times. But I've helped tons of people pass. Just heard from 3 people last week that passed. So you could be next. In fact, I've got let's see, I thought I had one more testimonial. I think, let me see. I think I have more testimonials to show you. These were not from last week. These were from before. Karumi did my tutoring. She lived in Mexico till she was about 9 and then moved to the US. So she was real confident when she took the BTLPT, but she failed it a couple of times because she didn't have the right resources, right? And then she did my course in tutoring, very dedicated, and she passed on her 3rd try. And Janet really struggled too. Janet struggled a lot with anxiety. So she did my course, but she also did my test anxiety course. And it helped her. And then she said that I was the only one that could help her with the lesson plan, that she had hired other people to help and didn't get the help she needed for the lesson plan in particular. So they passed with my help, and they're both teaching, very happy. So that's exciting. And Karumi even did some tutoring for me for a while. She was filling in for me when I couldn't tutor because she did so well after doing my course in tutoring. And I just really like her personality and her work ethic. So if you're struggling with the BTLPT, like a lot of people do, you know, it's about a 50% failure rate. I have 2 ways that I can help you pass. So I think the best way, and the way I have the best results, the people that I've been showing you, they did my course in tutoring, right? And we meet Tuesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Central. We go over all the domains. So 1 week we focus on reading the whole hour. 1 week we do writing the whole hour. 1 week listening. 1 week speaking. And I have a great group right now, and people really are participating, even for the speaking. It gets nerve-wracking, but they do it, right? And I recommend doing 2 months. I used to offer it weekly, but I noticed a lot of people were just signing up for a couple weeks and then they weren't passing because they didn't give it long enough, right? So I phased that out, and now it's a 2-month plan, and you can break it up over 12 months for payment to make it a lot more affordable. So if you choose Afterpay or Affirm, it can break it down to 30 something. That's a rough estimate, not the exact amount. $30-something a month for a 12-month payment plan, but it comes with 2 months of access, which I think is enough for most people if you come to me with a strong level of Spanish and we just need to tweak a few things. Some people need longer. If your Spanish isn't that strong, we need more than 2 months, of course. But most people come to me with a C1 level of Spanish, which is advanced, and we just have to tweak a few things. So it takes about 2 months to get better at the domains, right? So that's the best way to pass. If you're real self-directed and maybe you don't want tutoring, right? Then you can just do my course. And there is a payment plan for that too. If you select Afterpay, you don't have to do a payment plan. You can just pay it, and that's great too. But I try to make this affordable and accessible no matter your budget, right? Because I know some of you guys are already teaching, so you've got a steady income. But some of y'all aren't teaching yet. So money's tight. And I want to show you, like, I just heard from somebody I tutored recently. She's making $70,000 a year, right? Because she gets a stipend. And the average salary, I looked it up, for bilingual teachers is around $60,810. So I know it's hard to think about spending money for this test, right? Especially because you bilingual teachers have to take lots of tests, right? So it gets expensive. But retesting is also expensive, right? And if you don't put in the time and effort and money before you test, you might end up taking it multiple times, which also gets expensive. So I encourage you to look at it instead of a cost as an investment, right? Like, what am I going to get? I'm going to get a job that's going to pay me $60,000 a year for my whole career. Plus, you'll pay into TRS and get retirement. So it's a lifelong thing, right? So I know that, like, before I took any test, I spent money on study material. Some of it didn't work for me, and then I had to make my own study material. But I always tried, always looked for stuff that was out there to help me pass, so I didn't have to retest. And so far, thank God, I have not had to retest on anything. But this is a great way to pass. Either one is good. I have had people pass with just the course only, but most people need the tutoring, honestly. It helps them stay on track, and they're more likely to turn in their assignments and finish everything, and they learn more. So I have better success with the course in tutoring, but I have had people pass either way. So if you go to this link, it has the hyperlinks for both options. And again, just select Afterpay or Affirm if you do need that payment plan. You can play with a credit card or with PayPal. If you like PayPal, you can do that too. So I think that, oh, and I wanted to tell you, if you sign up tonight, right, that I will give you my PPR course for free, which is over $79 with tax. It's $79 plus tax. So that's a little incentive I'm offering if you'll act fast. So if you sign up tonight, that'll save you money down the road when you have to take the PPR. Because most people, I think most of y'all still have to take the PPR, right?
Check my PPR. So I'm
You
just
do,
pending the
Angie?
bilingual. Yes, I'm just pending the bilingual exam.
Yeah, so if you need the PPR, this would be a great way to save some money. So signing up today. Yeah, and I do have material for the core subjects too. And what sets me apart, there's lots of good material out there for the core subjects, tons of stuff that's really good. And I've bought a lot of it, right? But what I hear from people that use the other programs first and then they come to mine is they get overwhelmed because it has so much information, and it's good information, but it's information overload. So if you need help with the core subjects, I have a great course that's very concise. It still has everything you need to know, but it doesn't have all the extra stuff that you don't need to know. So I've had some people tell me they've tried all these different resources first, and then yeah, history is a lot. And yeah, 240 tutoring, it's excellent, but it is a lot of information. I bought it because I used it for when I was tutoring somebody for a test I didn't have material for. So we used that on Zoom and shared our screen. And I was very impressed by it. I like their plan to pass, but it's just so much information, it's hard to get through all of it. So I thought I made mine for busy people that need to pass fast, right? That's my goal, is to help you pass and pass fast. But honestly, I have seen some people's stuff that has less material than mine. So mine's kind of in the middle, but it's a lot less than some of the programs out there that are just overwhelming. So I've heard consistently from people that mine is manageable and they can get through it. Yeah, the link for the course in tutoring, let me get you the direct link. It's in one of the ones that I sent earlier, but let me just send you the link just for the course in tutoring that way, because I think that's what most of you guys are going to be interested in. So let me get that direct link. And like I said, there is a payment plan. So you know, you don't have to pay all at once. You can break it up. You can break it up under 4 months with no interest, which is great, or 12 months with a small interest fee. So it's a lot less than a credit card interest rate. I think it's 6.99%, which, you know, might be more than like your house payment, your mortgage, but a lot less than credit card, because the credit card companies charge usually like 18 or 20%. So I try to make it manageable for everybody. So money's not going to hold you back from meeting your goal, right? So, so I'm glad you guys were able to come and you learned something. And hopefully I'll see you guys on Tuesday nights in tutoring and see your assignments that you turn in and help you get better. And I also just tell you, like, okay, so if you've struggled with this test before, right? Try something new, right? Because if you keep doing the same thing, you're probably going to get the same results. And then it can also calm your anxiety, because if you go in next time knowing that you've done different things, you can tell yourself, well, this time I'm going to pass because I've done something different, right? I've gotten the help that I need from somebody who's taken the test. So some of the people that make material for the BTLPT, they're content experts. They're excellent in Spanish, might even have a PhD in Spanish. I have a master's in Spanish, but they might even have a PhD. But if they haven't taken the test, then their stuff might not help you as much, right? So it would be good stuff, I'm sure, but you want something that is real similar to the test. So that's what sets me apart, is I only make stuff for the Texas exams, and I take the same test that you guys take. So yeah, so like I was showing you guys at the beginning, all the tests I've passed, right? 15 of them now. And I'm going to take another one soon, because anything that I want to tutor for, I always want to make sure that I've passed it, right? So that's important to me. So as soon as I can get a babysitter to watch my son, then I'm going to go take my next test. But any questions or comments or anything?
I have a question. I'm on your website, the Texas teachers, and what's the BLTP 190 course do it yourself?
Oh, the do-it-yourself course?
Uh-huh.
What was your question? How much is it, or more information about it?
More information about it. Does that mean I'm gonna be on my own?
It's great. It's got reading, writing, listening, speaking, and it has, includes feedback on your assignments. You just don't get the weekly tutoring on Tuesday nights, and it has less lesson plans. It's not going to have as many lesson plans, and you're not going to get that weekly help. So most people really prefer, in fact, a lot of people start out with the course only, and then they get the course in tutoring. So they end up spending more money, right? But I have seen people pass with just that. So if you're super motivated on top of things, it can definitely work for you. But you wouldn't get the Tuesday night tutoring. You wouldn't get as many lesson plans. You wouldn't get the peer support from other people taking the BTLPT. That's what I love about the tutoring, is it's a small group of people all going through the same thing. So we're always talking about, one night we even stayed a little bit late and we're talking about what telenovelas we're watching right now, because even though that's not really a way to study, you can learn vocabulary from it, right? And that all helps. So we talk about fun things we're doing, practical things we're doing. And what's really cool is I also do tutoring for the LOTE, and I have a bigger group for that, because for whatever reason, I always have more people for the LOTE, because that test is even harder. So more people need help for that. And some of them in my tutoring, they've met each other at training. There's 2 of them working at the same district in Leander. So they were able to meet in person in training. They recognized each other's names from tutoring. And then 2 of them work at Round Rock ISD, and they met each other at some type of event too. So that was really a small world, but yeah, any other questions or comments? No? So the course in tutoring bundle, I'll put that link again, because I think that's the one most people want. And then tonight, I'll email you the links too, in case whenever we log off the chat box, I think closes itself out. So that way you have it handy. But yeah, if you sign up tonight, you'll get the PPR course free, which is a great value. And I've had lots of good feedback about the PPR course. Some people that have tried many other programs and then passed. Yes, thank you guys. I really enjoyed it. I love what I do. Would love to help you pass. And I do ask that you please keep in touch. I would love to hear from you when you pass, and get a testimonial, so you can be the next one on my free tutoring to show your success story. But thank you so much. Hope y'all have a great night. Thanks.
Gracias, Courtney.
Oh, gracias a ti. Nos vemos.
Vemos.